It's FoosTalk live.
You talking to me?
Compelling and lively banter.
Are you going to talk to us?
Talking foosball.
Foosball was how I measured my value as a man. You took that away.
Players and fans, promoters and pros. Unedited and raw.
Talk.
Living in the moment.
We have a lot of important things to talk about.
All while practicing social distancing.
Cool. We'll talk. No big whoop.
Let's get this thing started. FoosTalk live. Coming to you live from the Foosball Radio Studios, it's the 138th episode of FoosTalk Live. Hey there, I'm Tom Robinson, and I want to personally thank our Patreon pillars for their support of Foosball Radio and FoosTalk Live. Thanks to James Sparky Castillo, David Kala, Cameron Burrows, Mike Green, Jimmy Love, Dwayne Stewart, Judy Schober, Jamie Kunst, Rob Cutler, Reed Rector, Clay Toomey, and Adam Gilson. Thank you. Your support brings continued and expanding content from Foosball Radio and FoosTalk Live as we cover the greatest sport on earth. Visit patreon.com/Foosball Radio to find out how to become a Foosball Radio patron. Learn about the exclusive benefits we offer you. FoosTalk Live is brought to you by Original Leonhardt. The Leonhardt Tournament Model is the most popular foosball table at the ITSF World Cup. Designed and handcrafted in Germany, order online and have it delivered to your door. Visit www.original-leonhardt-usa.com and use promo code FoosTalk to save 10% off your purchase price. Yep, it's episode 138 of FoosTalk Live, the countdown for the FoosTalk Live top 25 male singles foosball players on the U.S. Tour continues tonight, and it's going to get tense as we get down to numbers 15 through 11. And of course, talking about the beautiful game of foosball is always much better when we have someone like Jim Stevens to talk to. Jim, the greatest play-by-play foosball announcer of all time. Greetings, Jim.
Thank you, Tom, and hi, everybody. Happy holidays to everybody. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. First night of Hanukkah tonight. And looking forward to what should be a great 2023. And we're down to the final 15, of course, the male singles players, the top 25 male singles players on the American Foosball Tour. And the names you're going to hear tonight, folks, we're starting to get in to the biggies, the big ones, the guys who were more than just foosball, guys who really brought so much to the game and had so much success playing the game as well. So looking forward to tonight, Tom.
It's going to be intense. There's no doubt about it. I have a feeling there might be a little bit of arguing going on because, of course, along with us tonight, Jim, we have some other folks who've jumped in to also make their choices to this list. And, well, from what I understand, it's not all in agreement. So Adam Gilson from Ventura, California, of course, Adam, with a long history of foosball in his family, has a lot of opinions. Right, Adam?
I have so many opinions, which I'm prepared apparently to get pilloried for. I was here enjoying myself with my nice IPA I was going to have, and next thing I know, it's going to be I need a flamethrower.
There's always going to be some controversy, and that's what makes this so interesting is different opinions, 4 different opinions in this case. And, you know, having to go through all the things we've talked about before in terms of era, in terms of different tables, in terms of length or shortness of career, et cetera, makes it interesting, makes for some lively discussion and maybe some disagreement. We'll see.
But, you know, and one of the things that I will say, because I was going to say something else entirely in this moment, but one of the things I will say is that I am very happy and open to being wrong. And admitting so, if that's the case. I mean, the whole point of this list, as we've said from the very beginning, was discourse. So, you know. Okay.
And well, maybe you could, take some time out to share that kind of that sentiment, of course, with our other host this evening.
I don't like
Mark
him.
Toy.
Spoken like a true sociopath, Adam. Thank you.
What? That's the opposite of a sociopath, Mark. You gaslighter.
Oh,
I'm muting you.
Empathy. I love it. Look at me. I'm so full of compassion. I'm ready to be wrong, ladies and gentlemen. As long as I talk to my index finger and tells me the truth later, I'm amazing. Whatever, bro.
Why are you blurring out a white background, Mark? You call me a sociopath?
Hey, Lodka. Hey, double Lodkas. Let's just not go there.
That doesn't make any sense.
This has been a lot of fun, man. Like, counting down is a great thing, and it inspires all kinds of memory, and we get opinions, and it's diversified. And my favorite thing is making stuff up, and then like guys with like facts like Adam just falling apart on a live show. That's so Christmas. That's my idea. So anyway, I'm ready.
This is the holiday time of year of giving, Mark.
Yes, sir. It's a fun party. I'm excited to be doing this show.
He's gift wrapped it for us tonight, guys. So just be ready. I hope you brought your helmet, your flak jacket.
And your mouth guard, Adam, he's talking to you. All that.
Yeah, guys, we talked about this earlier. It was going to be interesting. Obviously, that bottom 10 was going to be interesting. But then also, as you now get into like 15, 10, just outside the top 10, that's where some controversy lies, I think. Who should maybe be in the top 10, right? As opposed to sitting at 12, 13, 14, whatever. And that kind of makes all of this very different. It's somewhat subjective. Yes, we can use stats. Yes, we can use numbers. But is that the whole picture? Generally not. But sometimes statistics speak loudly.
Oh, yeah. So question for the panel here. Any comments about last week's countdown? Because we went through 20 through 16. Any blowback from the audience?
I don't know. Yeah, Mark, you've probably monitored it better than I have, but I don't know that at this stage of the game, there's people are going to get as excited or as hurt by maybe some of our selections. That could change tonight, though, Mark.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I got some feedback. One very prominent competitor, and I mean intense competitor, is listening very carefully for where they land on the list, and messaged me for the rest of the list. And of course, I didn't deliver that. I don't know if I, under any false pretense, made it seem like I didn't have the rest of the list. I don't think so. I got to go back and look at the texts. But there
So
are
you
people.
did not tell Fernando he may not be on the list? You didn't tell him that?
As it wasn't Fernando. Fernando wouldn't even. Fernando's not even sniffing this list, bro. I hope you hear that too. You're not even. You might be on the second list. Top of the Mexican list. I love you. Anyway.
Wow.
But anyway, there are people listening, and I think it's an entertaining and exciting show. And I think we start getting into a spot now where you could have some people scratching their heads, and where memory and imagination and nostalgia and facts start to collide. And I think it's something we may talk about later, if I'm guessing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So before we go on, I got to do a shout out to everybody on Twitch. Really appreciate you all. I'm seeing some first time commenters right now. Buffalo Foosball wants to know what the IPA of the year is.
IPA of the year. I love that.
Wow, that's a fascinating.
That'd be cool.
I think I can name mine.
Okay. Okay. I think I can probably do the same for sure. Especially 2022. There was pretty extraordinary moments here. But,
So we'll do it in the IPA part. We'll do it then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And also, we also have some other people. Chris Foosball. That's Chris Ralston out of Colorado saying hi. So Mike Green, of course, who I don't think ever leaves the chat. Mike, it's good to see you as always. So again, and as we're doing our thing tonight, we're all keeping an eye on the chat. Just chime in, and we'll bring you in there if you have anything to say. Unless you're Lewis Cartwright, you're done. We're over with you. If you're there, don't worry about it. We're done talking to you. Otherwise, there you go.
Will not respond to Lewis. No.
Incidentally, Mike Green has something to say about Billy for Mark. Billy, he saw Billy last night, and he said the next bet is on who can put 50 pounds on instead of losing.
I'll crush. So just a quick update before we get on. I had a two-way bet going with two different entities. One of them was Billy, another was a friend of mine. It was $1,000 both ways. I made my weight and took a screenshot yesterday. I made the weight and sent it to him, and double or nothing the bet, because I've been eating like a complete glutton for the last 36. I've been eating like every 5 minutes. I mean, I already look like hell from yesterday. So it's on, man. Whatever you want to do is party.
Dig it. Cool. Well, I think it's time to put on some weight here. What do you say? Whoa, hold on a second. Oh, there we go. What Jim and I like to do right about this time is to reveal our favorite IPA. Okay, Jim, you're on.
Oh, it's me. I'm on. Matt McCrory talked about the IPA of the year, and for me, it is the Pliny the Elder double IPA out of Russian River Brewing in Northern California. It's legendary. When they get it, it goes fast. If a keg comes into town, that thing is done by the next day. Very, very legendary beer, Pliny the Elder out of Northern California. But tonight, I'm actually coming to your neck of the woods, Tom, out of North Haven, Connecticut. It's my new favorite brewery. Abomination Brewing in North Haven. This is their Ocean Monsters.
Oh,
Of
that
course,
one.
we all know.
Yeah.
There it is. Their Ocean Monsters, 6.5%, a single IPA, hazy as they so often are. When coming from New England, a beautiful color as you can see, just gorgeous.
Lovely.
Isn't that nice? Great
Yeah,
bouquet.
fresh.
And it is delicious. Outstanding.
Nice. Yeah, North Haven, by the way, it seems to be a mecca for really good IPAs. There's several breweries there that I've tried so far. That one being one of them, but I haven't had that IPA. But I have a feeling it's right up there with the rest.
Yeah,
No doubt.
Abomination Brewing in North Haven, they are killing it.
Oh yeah, great stuff. Adam, you seem to be preoccupied.
Because my IPA of the year comes from my favorite place so far, breweries, of course, the Pacific Northwest. Got to be Fremont Disco Wolf. Their hazy double
Disco
IPA.
Wolf.
But
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. I liked it. But one of my favorite things was I got to have it a couple times this year. And one of the times was when Jim Stevens came over. Him and his wife came over and we had dinner with my wife and I.
Yeah.
And it was just a lovely time. It was a lot of fun. But it's such a good beer, and it's always fun to be sharing good beers with friends.
Yeah.
And this one,
well, thank you again, Adam.
yeah. Oh, that was And this one. So I'm. It's been a while since I've had a juicy. And I wanted to get this hazy, juicy IPA. This is Voodoo Ranger. I've seen these before. I've never really had one and enjoyed it. Enjoyed it. So I'm just kind of curious where we're at here with it.
that's a big can, man.
It's a long night. This is just kind of exactly what you'd want from a juicy. It's light. It's approachable. And it's got a nice. There's a nice citrusy grapefruit back end to it, which I totally love. So I am looking forward to the next 18 ounces of this.
Oh, very nice.
Thank you.
Mark, well, anything other than LaCroix tonight? What is it?
It's LaCroix.
It's
But I haven't
LaCroix.
I have had like a couple of Woodford whiskey or bourbon with eggnog past couple nights, but I didn't. I should have had that. I should just right here to show
It's
everybody
holiday
what's really
season.
on the inside. Like, let me do that. I should have done that.
Goes on behind that white blurred wall there. Yes.
That's so classic.
IPA of him to do that, of course.
Barry LaCroix. LaCroix.
It's LaCroix.
Okay,
Yeah.
here's my IPA of the year. This one, Beyond Measure, was absolutely my favorite. It's Vitamin M. And Vitamin M comes from Middletown, New York, which really doesn't have much else going on. But there is that, man. That's the IPA of the year for me, hands down. So,
Love it. Yeah.
as far as
Can't wait to
tonight-
have one someday. Yeah.
oh,
that's
it's
great.
I'll send you.
Sounds like remember
Please.
when the ice cream truck used to come and give you candy gum cigarettes and they're
Oh.
Pall Malls and you'd smoke them? That's what
Oh,
Vitamin
yeah.
M sounds like. It sounds like marketed for kids, but it's actually a toxic for their livers. All right.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So tonight I'm sharing with you once again something from Founders, which is based out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. This one's called the Unraveled IPA, and it is a 6.6 alcohol by content. And we're going to pour this in a glass, even though it's not that powerful. We'll still sample it. And there's the color. There you have it. Down the head.
It's like how my urine looks right after a fast.
Ha ha ha. Woo!
Hopefully it tastes better than that.
I'm
However,
sure. Well, it does.
here's to you guys. Happy holidays to all
Cheers,
of you guys,
happy
and a happy
holidays,
New Year.
yeah.
Happy Hanukkah.
Any happy
Happy
returns.
Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and of course, Festivus for the rest of us. I got a beef with you. I got a bone to pick with you, but we'll talk about that later as we dance around the Festivus pole.
Is that the
I like
feats
it.
of
Look at
strength?
Tom. Love that.
Feet and strength come next. Wow, that's good. I gotta have some more of that. Well, I think now that we've got some technical issues, we have a fifth member this evening who's also been very instrumental in choosing the list we've been counting down. Dave Gummison, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
No, Dave.
Unfortunately, we don't have camera because I'm guessing, Dave, you're sitting downstairs in the basement, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm in the foosball room.
Nice.
Can you click your camera on so we can all see it? That'd be awesome.
Oh, do I have to?
Hey, what year was it? What year was it? What year was it when you got a stylist? It was like 2014. You got a stylist. You got all sculpted. Your hair started changing, dude. Let's see it. Probably like a six-pack abs right now. I know. Well,
No.
come on, dude.
I'm looking like I'm about 70.
70.
And how do I turn? How to turn the thing on?
Should be a little camera icon in the lower left there.
This is exactly like talking to my mom, by the way. Once you turn your camera on, the whole show crashes and burns.
No, it's going to change the whole thing, but I mean, I'm here for it. I want to
no
see.
problem. If you can find it, that'd be great. Tom, back to you.
Yes.
Well, I did press the icon and it just says device settings.
Oh,
there you go. Well, Dave,
There you
it's
go.
great to have you on board. It's great to have you. Now, Dave, you've been helping out with choosing the top 25 male singles players on the U.S. Tour. So far, how many things have you actually seen go right, and how many things have you seen go wrong as far as what you've chosen?
Well, I mean, I don't think necessarily the order I had it in is right. It's just
Okay.
but I think what's interesting now is from 15 on up. Actually, I would go 16 or 17 on up. Everybody on that list now is an actual icon of foosball, and especially in single.
True.
So, I mean, really, it was pretty easy to put people down, to make the list down to about 15, 16, 17. And then it got a lot more difficult.
Yeah, so it's like splitting hairs now because everybody. Yeah.
I
Wow.
mean, you guys, for some reason, I ended up 23, which is probably kind of funny because I don't think I even should be on the list.
Really? Why do you say that?
I never really considered myself a singles specialist, and I thought that's what it was about. I had the year that I won singles. I guess I was probably the best player at that tournament that weekend, but I was the best singles player that year necessarily.
Yeah. I mean, you were right smack dab in the middle of the 1990s. So many different players that could win it. I think the way you won that event in 1995, the way you went about it, how amazing of a performance it was, certainly factored into you making the top 25. For me, the biggest issue with you was simply the body of work. There came a point where singles was not a priority for you. You didn't play a lot of singles, and I think that kind of hurt you. But that performance in 95 still got you, I think, legitimately into the top 25.
Yeah, I mean, I got to credit playing with Swan that year for a lot of it too. I mean, we were playing, really 4 or 5 hours of singles a day against each other, and he plays a really fast style, and it got me used to that. And but I didn't really change my style, which is really high percentage and methodical. But I wasn't really caught off guard by anybody that did play fast, so made a big difference.
And a couple of weeks ago, we featured you on our flashback. One of your greater moments as a singles player, and it was just amazing, just an amazing performance. And I think after watching the old video and hearing what happened, yeah, I'm totally down with these guys. I think you belong on that list for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely flattering, and I just never really thought of myself, other than that few years where I was playing a lot of singles. When I think of single specialists, I think of more players like Rob Mars and Don Swan and Johnny Horton and
Sure.
Furry. Steve Simon, players that really made a name for themselves in the singles event.
Right.
Yeah. No, this should be a lot of fun tonight, getting interesting for sure.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of looking forward. The 5 that are on there tonight are all really, with the possible exception of one, are all very legendary singles players. One is just a legendary player.
Interesting. And Jim is just rubbing his hands together here.
We're going to get to that.
He's ready to go. So before we get into that, though, of course, we have to reminisce a bit, of course, with the flashback. And I have a feeling a couple of these players may appear on our list tonight. You just never know.
Let me make one quick remark, Tom, before you start that. Bob Maloney made a comment that is, I think it's a little maybe sarcastic, but it also has some rooting in why you made. So getting to 25 was tough. We did this together, and the last, the 21 to 25 was not easy. And
Okay.
Bob Maloney puts in chat, "Hey Dave, World Championship gets you extra points." I think when we did look at the list of world champions, you got to look at the world champion. If you're going to start splitting hairs on people that had a lot of high finishes or won a couple times, and then you look at a world championship in the 90s, you look at your list, and Dave's on that list of world champions that won in the 90s. So I think it was a rightful place on the list for where it's both, at the same time, it's an accolade and recognition to be in the top 25. That 21 through 25 starts to get sparse on who you recognize at that point. Is that pretty fair? So
Yeah.
deserving, in my opinion. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I get all that, and I see where that comes from. I think once you get down below 17, 18, it's splitting hairs, like you said. It's hard to pick one person over another. It gets a lot easier to say, this person who's got 3 or 4 or 5 world singles titles, or somebody who's just really been a dominant singles player over the years. It's easier to pick those once you get up into that top 15, 16 range.
Mike Green has a question specifically for you, and I want to harken back to something we did about a year back. We had something called the Leroy Jenkins, and the reason why we did that is because Rodney Jenkins, everyone has an Achilles heel, and Lewis Cartwright couldn't beat Rodney Jenkins. I beat Rodney Jenkins in singles. Lewis could not beat Rodney Jenkins, and then we had this whole who is your Achilles heel. Mike Green wants to know, who was the toughest guy? Was there a guy that just really beat you and you hated it and he kept beating you and you felt like he shouldn't?
No,
was it me, Dave? If it's me, it's okay. You can admit it.
No, it's more the usual suspects, like the people that one of the reasons I stopped playing singles is there was certain players I just knew I wasn't going to beat, at least not with any regularity. Guys like Federico and Tony and Billy. They were just at another level, and I don't enjoy it if I'm at that big a disadvantage. It feels like too much. I don't know. I just lost a little bit of my competitive drive after losing to those guys and knowing that they were just better than I was in singles.
Well, you made up for it in doubles, so that's no no disgrace in giving up in singles because you were a lesser man. Anyway,
for weapon in doubles.
Yeah, you're a lethal weapon in doubles.
Well, what do you say, before we get into our countdown again, we're going to be reviewing from number 15 to number 11 of the top 25 male singles players on the U.S. Tour. And it's coming up in just a few. But before we get there, we need to reminisce with great moments in foosball history. This is a FoosTalk Live.
Fredo, so dangerous offensively from every rock. Fires it down the table, moves into the offensive position to grab the rebound. Todd Fredo with another chance to put it away. I believe it's his 4th. He brings it across, sets it up and pull shots and trying to go to that straight hole. Looked like the hole was there. Hit off the corner. Rebound comes all the way back. Fredo looking to clear the zone. Hit it wide on the goal. It's rebounded into the goal by Rob Mares, who comes back from a 4-1 deficit in game number 5 to steal the match and win the national championship. What a hustling comeback performance from that man right there, Rob Mares. Great performance by Mares. And he's the champ.
Listen in next time for another great moment in foosball history. It's FoosTalk Live. I got to say, watching that match, it really seemed like in the first set that Lafredo is just going to steamroll his way to the championship, but it just didn't go that way, and it was really kind of a weird ending because the final shot from Mares came off his fibro. And it was really.
What year was that, Tom? What year was that that happened?
It was. I didn't get the exact year, so I don't want to sound foolish here. I don't know. It was the Nationals that year.
2009. Was it as recent as that? Perhaps.
Possibly.
Yeah, maybe the national doubles champ or national singles championships in St. Louis. Anyway.
Yeah,
I think I would remember that, but I didn't really recognize it. Yeah.
But
But
in the late
again,
'90s too, because Rob was really peaking in the late '90s.
I didn't sound like that. That wasn't the '90s me, though. I don't think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was Rob Morris with he still had his, shoulder length or longer hair.
Mhm.
And Todd looked, I mean, really like
Did he
Todd.
look thin? Did he look thin
Thin and
at the time?
tall
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
totally dark hair. And so it could have been 1990s, I think. Late 90s, maybe 98, 99.
I'll look it up and get back to you.
Yeah, good. And here I thought you had it right at the top of your head. Jim, you disappointed me there. But anyway,
Oh,
I
yeah, I like it. Already starting with controversy. Who's the best?
Well, no, I mean, but here's the question though, Tom. Why did that jump out at you?
it was because, well, first of all, maybe one of these two may appear in the top, 15 to 11 tonight. Maybe. We'll see. But anyway, it was just seemed like Rob Morris as a singles player has always been, very, very good, but he had very few really big wins.
Well, we'll get into all that, won't we?
Yes, we will.
Potentially tonight. Yes.
Potentially.
Let's do this.
All right, here we go.
Throughout the history of professional foosball competition, the top players have waged war. Many have tried, and many have failed. Last year, we presented the top 50 foosball players in the history of the game. Now, FoosTalk Live returns to bring you the names of those who stand above the rest. The top 25 singles foosball players on the U.S. Tour. This list has been compiled by experts, stored for weeks in the Mark Torres Enchilada Pantry, locked in the vault of the firm Stevens, Torres, Gilson, and Gullison, and hand-delivered under armed guard to the studios of FoosTalk Live. Tonight, we present to you the top 25 male singles players, ranked from number 15 through number 11. Here now is the number 15 ranked male singles foosball player on the U.S. Tour, Steve Simon.
Yeah, Steve Simon. And again, Steve, one of the great early players, one of the sport's true pioneers, really did all his damage in about a 3, maybe 4-year period. A push kicker who won the 1975 World Singles Championship and then came back the next year in 1976 to finish second to Dan Kaiser at the 76 event. Had 2 singles titles in 1977 on the Pro Tour, the TS Tour, of course. Was also third in open singles at Super Singles that year. That was a big event. Second at a $50,000 New York event in 1978. And that was really his last big singles finish. So only a couple of 3-4 years, but that's the kind of impact he made during that time. Dave said it earlier. He was a singles player. You can kind of picture him there at the table in that push kick stance at times, but also the transition game, very good as well. Another of those early players who really helped design and create the modern singles game. Obviously, it's evolved since then, but really it was the rule changes that had recently taken place and the style of play that evolved very quickly because of the level of competition. And Steve Simon was at the forefront of that. Again, pioneer status factors in a lot here. A tremendous early success. We talked about those 2 early, very early World Singles Final appearances. Finished number 31 on our list of the top 50 players in the history of the American Tour. Number 15 here on the list of the top singles players. Steve Simon out of Austin, Texas, inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2001.
I'm going to be very brief, and then I'm going to defer to Dave. I've only ever seen Steve play pickup games. I've never actually seen him play a match. He was at a foosball tournament, and I see him hacking around. He absolutely has a reputation that precedes him. And I've seen Johnny Lott on social media elaborate on Steve as though if you were to go era for era, I'm sure he would argue immediately that Steve should be in the top 3 of this list, according to Johnny Lott. But for the purposes of me not knowing a ton about him, and I was impressed with what I've seen him play. If there's anything, these guys that were champions in the 70s, they manifest or they project still some of that confidence, like you're at their table. They have that attitude about them. They carry that about them, and I think it's great. But other than that, I don't know much about Steve, and I'd love to hear Dave and then Adam, speak more to him. So Dave, please take over.
Well, I would start by saying I didn't start playing until 76, and arguably his strongest year would be 75. I didn't really start traveling until 78. So I really didn't see him at his peak, but I do know a lot about him reputation wise and what he's done. One thing that didn't get mentioned, I think, is in 75, he won the national championship, or what you'd say would be the world championships on both TS and Tornado the same year. So they had a Tornado national championships in singles. He won singles there, and then he also did it on TS, which was really difficult, I think, to do, especially then. As far as evaluating overall, I think there's two ways you can go about it. You can either look at it as just total number of world titles, and then you'd wonder, well, is he too high on this list? But if you look at it from a standpoint of, for his era and the number of participants and the competition level and the prize money and how big it was then, you could argue that he should be higher on the list. So it's just really your perception of where, what criteria you're going to use and what you're going to take into consideration. I mean, he was definitely one of the most impactful legendary singles players of that whole era, maybe, top couple. And he was a dominant player, but, and he had and still probably has no shortage of confidence.
Sure.
Confidence.
Yes. That's how I'm going to put it. He has a lot of confidence. But
Powered by Jesus, baby. Powered by Jesus. I'll just tell you that.
Great singles player, no doubt.
So two things about Steve Simon. Every time I see him in the last 20-something years that I've been going to these tournaments, every time I see him, he is so gracious and he's so kind, and he comes up to me and he talks to me about how at that tournament, Dave, that you mentioned in 75, my dad was there. My dad is a push kick shooter. And helped him with some mechanics or whatever. It's my dad who worked for tournament soccer and played foosball on the side, but he wasn't like a pro player. And he remembers that decades later and always points that out to me whenever I see him, which I just think is so kind and speaks to a level of character, foosball or otherwise, that I think is very nice. But one of the things that I enjoy going to if I'm looking for tiebreakers or just a little bit more information is this Table Soccer Digest that I go to. And one of the things that I found very interesting, looking at the tournament soccer, calm down, Mark, it's called Facts. It's all right there. One of the things
you wrote it up and Xeroxed it yourself off your damn little printer back.
Yeah, I got MS Paint. Baby. Anyways, don't interrupt me, dude. My point is this, is that looking at the tournament soccer players poll and statistics of those players back then in the golden era of foosball, the top 5, as voted by these top players back then, the top 5 greatest singles players, Doug Furry, Dan Kaiser, Mike Bowers, Steve Simon is number 4, 5 Tom Spear. It's interesting, but this was kind of before the fact that this poll was taken in the mid '80s, so there was still stuff that was still playing out, right? But I mean, just speaking to Steve Simon's legacy and the time that he played in just the 3 short years, because that's always something we talk about, and I think we're going to wrap up this at some point in one of the last episodes, Jim and Mark and Tom and Dave, and talk about how so much of what foosball is now came from just this little 4 or 5 6 year period, right? Which is so fascinating. But Steve Simon at this location on this list, very well deserved.
Yeah, I mean, number 15 for a man who really only played 4 years maybe on tour at the highest level, but to accomplish quite a bit, and of course his impact and the ripple effect of what he helped create early on, I certainly part of what lands him, I think, at a very deserving number 15. And shortness of career maybe hurt him a little bit, hurt him from being higher on the list.
Coming in at number 14 on the FoosTalk Live Top 25 Male Singles Foosball Players, Robert Mares.
Yeah, our good friend Rapid Robert Mares, the final player on this list. Basically the only player in the top 15 who does not actually have a world championship title. But that should tell you something about the man's career, the length of the career, the level of success that he has attained. Broke through in the early 1990s, of course, after touring the country in the infamous Foos van, as seen in Foosballers, with Terry Moore, Evan Stachlik and company, and then earned his first tour win when he won Masters Singles. At that time, Masters Singles was a major competition. It was 20 or 30 master players competing in a single elimination 3 out of 5 format, and he won in 1994. We mentioned that he has never won a world championship. However, he has been in 6 Tornado World Singles Finals. 1995, losing to Dave Gummison, our guest tonight. In 1996, Lewis Cartwright beat him. In 2001, Mares lost to Johnny Horton in a very famous performance. 2004 and 2006 lost to, actually 2004 lost to Billy Pappas in 04. And in 2006, also, I believe, lost to Pappas again. 2013 lost to Federico. So some pretty, actually, that was Tony in 2013. Federico in 2006. But you look at the names of the players that Mares lost to, right? Dave Gummison playing out of his mind in 1995. Lewis Cartwright, who would's do? That's how good Lewis was in 1996. 2001, Johnny Horton, just rolling, right? And so Mares' 6 World Finals, could have won maybe 2 or 3 of them, potentially, right? That's how great this guy was. Also won 2 Hall of Fame singles championships. I'll never forget, I think it was 2014, when he faces Tony Spreadman in the finals of open singles at the Bardo Hearn celebration down in Austin, Texas. Rob had won the winner's bracket. Tony comes out and blitzes him the first 3 games of the opening set to win the first set and take it to a second. Tony then comes out and kills Rob 2 straight games to go up 2-0. Then Mares calls a timeout, steps away, walks around a little bit, looks inside himself, and comes back out and hits 11 straight shots on his 3-rod. Wins the next 3 games to come back and beat Tony after losing the first 5 games of the final and to become the Bardo Hearn Celebration champion. One of the tour's most versatile players ever. You know, he continued to be a really strong player well into the 90s, into the 2000s, 2010s, and still today. Robert Mares is a guy, when you see him playing singles, you think, you know, there's one of the guys that maybe could compete for the title here this weekend. One of the most consistent, enthusiastic, and competitive players the sport has ever seen. Finished up at number 14 on our top 50 as well, coincidentally. And here he is on number 14 in singles. Again, a man who never won a world championship, but I don't think there's any question in any of our minds that Robert Mares deserves to be in the top 15. Inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2015, comes in at number 14 on the top singles list.
I really struggled with Rob on my list. I really struggled with where to put Robbie on my list. So we were rookies together. We were amateurs together. In 1990, when I won the world championship in amateur doubles, I beat Robbie at 5th and sent him in the loser's bracket. So I just thought I'd memorialize that moment on this podcast forever.
Thank you.
But anyway, what happens with Robbie, he gets on that bus and now he's traveling around the country with that group of guys, including Tommy Atkinson and Terry Moore, and they're playing every tournament. And very quickly, Robbie becomes, Lafredo's everyone's gatekeeper in singles in the 90s. You got to beat Lafredo, and that's Robbie figures out how to beat Todd, and then he's dealing with Terry, and these guys Tommy's there, they're all going at each other's throats. Robbie's thing is he's going to be the number 1 player in the world, and he plays like everything. And he's number 1. I don't know how many years he's the number 1 player in the world. The points race is based off of really volume of play at that point, and he does so well so often at so many events. He's the number 1 player in the world. I can't remember. We'd have to look it up. But he was like number 1 for years. But I struggle with him on the list because, I don't know, but I have a bias, and maybe it's something I'm too discriminatory about. But I have a bias when you can't close, and it's probably an unfair bias. It didn't keep him out of the Hall of Fame, clearly. He's a world champion and international champion. He's so deserving of all the accolades. But when it comes to the top singles players of all time, part of my discrimination is winning at the world championship, and it's hard for me. So I think I'm very happy with Robbie on this list, and probably even at this spot. It could easily be argued he's too low on the list. Easily, if you want to come from the direction of body of work and some will argue, some people in this chat will probably argue that 6 times in the finals has equivalency to winning 1. And I'm not sure. I'd have to think that through and absorb it and argue about it. For me, I put such a high emphasis on winning as a differentiator between the herd and the elite. That's where my brain goes. And I'm as discriminatory about that detail on myself as I am, and I'm very consistent about it. I don't believe you're a master in this sport unless you win at the highest levels in majors. I don't care how many points you get. I don't care who you beat. I don't care if you beat Tony in singles 50 times in a row. You are not a master. You're not a master unless you win consistently at the championship level against everybody, not just Tony. And I feel that way. Feel very strongly about it. So I'm interested to hear Dave and Adam's opinion on this. I'll just say that I love Robbie. I think he's amazing. I grew up with that guy, and I'm happy to see him on this list. I'm not sure if I'm fine with where he is. Any higher or lower is totally up for debate, and I'm excited to hear the opinions of the other guys. Dave, please.
Are you sure you're done?
No, you know what? Don't piss me off, man. I just got done. Just finished.
If I had known that Mark Torres had beat Marquez, he may not be on my list. That's all I'm saying.
Mark, I'd be one of those guys that would argue with you that I would take Robbie's 6 final appearances in Worlds over someone that just won one. But I do also want to point out, it keeps getting said, and I know that he hasn't won a world title. Well, as he hasn't won a world singles title, I think he's got at least 3 or 4 world doubles titles.
Yep.
Different partners. And why is that? Because Rob is extremely easy to play with. I've played with him before, whether it's World Cup or in just a tournament. He's just a super nice guy, very supportive of his partner. So he's like the ideal partner to have in an event, which is kind of weird because he's also one of the best singles players. But he's actually the absolute definition of a singles player. When you think of singles, he's a great forward, he's a great goalie, and he's got an exceptional transition game, fast hands, does all the things that would make somebody a great singles player. So, I mean, if anything, I think he should be higher on the list. But like you said, he doesn't have the world singles title, but to me, he's just the definition of a strong singles player. So when I think of great singles players, I think of Rob Mars.
Dave, do you think top 10 or a little higher in this bracket?
There's so many great players still coming up, so it's really hard.
It's half
but
the
you
fun.
certainly, I think you could make a case for it, though. Yeah.
Yeah, and this brings up the whole Trevor Park dilemma, and we've talked about this. Mark and we've talked about this extensively. Like Trevor Park has been open doubles second place at Worlds 2-3 times or whatever it is. One ball, how many times, Jim? That's like a possession away, a ball away.
Yeah, 2000, 2001, and 2003 had chances or opportunities or a window in all 3 of those championship finals.
And he doesn't crack our top 50 of greatest players of all time, right? Not singles, right?
But if he wins one of those, he would have. Yeah.
Right. And it's a really interesting question, and it speaks, as Bob Maloney is saying about the winning world championships. We've been talking about Gummison. It's a very interesting conversation when we talk about this. Where do you place in your ability if you're not actually winning, as Mark says, if you're not actually closing? That's a conversation we're going to continue to be having, I think, for forever and all time, which is fine because that's what pays the bills, right? Anyways, I will say this, though. I, too, once beat Rob Mars in singles as a semi-pro at Nationals in 2004. I 3-straighted him. And then I saw him again to play for 5th later. And it was 5 games, and it was just so amazing to me because I was just like, what's a semi-pro, like expert to today's ish, right? And I remember I was feeling confident. You get in those modes and you're just playing above your head against somebody that is good, and just all of a sudden in the 5th game he just turns it to another gear and he sees something in my armor, this gaping hole, and he shoots in this 5th game, and this is something that I've talked to Tommy Atkinson about since. He shoots 3 dead bar, brush back, pull kicks from the 2 bar. The second he saw my zone was screwed. And then he shot a 4th. And I'm like, I haven't even gotten the ball on the 3 bar yet, right? That is the kind of player, and that is when we talk about a single specialist, somebody that isn't just playing on the 5 and the 3 and playing defense. They can play the whole zone and see what it is. So It is just not shocking to me to see. And we had the conversation. Could it be higher? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. This is just part of the conversation. But Rob Mars, congratulations.
Yeah, again, coming from one of his true peers, in Dave and Rob, both in their primes, they were competitors with each other. To hear Dave say that when he thinks of a singles player, he thinks of Robert Mares, and I think you expanded on that beautifully as well, Adam. He is a pure singles player. And the fact that he hasn't won one, I mean, if he had won 2 of these, where would he be on this list? If he had won 33% of those, where would he be on this list? We're talking high top 10. But I think deserving again. I think he landed in a good spot. let's move on to the next one, and maybe things will change in my eyes.
Well, Jim, I just remembered something I observed when we played the flashback with Morris versus Lafredo in the gameplay. When the 2 row blocks the 3 row and the ball goes off the table comes back to the 5 row. So,
Oh, okay.
so
Yeah.
that's maybe a clue as to what era that might have
Yeah,
been.
that was
Mm-hmm.
before the Colorado Clear rule. Those guys, I got decimated by the way that tactic. I like the '93 Worlds by Robbie and Spear, who played together, and so that's mid to late '90s, right? When did that rule change, Dave? When you could no longer get the ball back on your 5 bar?
I don't remember the exact year.
Early, very
It was-
early 2000s. It was a very
Was
early
it?
2000.
I thought it was '90s, but yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
very
know.
early. Yeah, I think it was very early, late 90s, early 2000s, right in there. Okay, so we're beginning to narrow it down to when that
1999, maybe
flashback took
98,
place.
something like that. Maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows? Well, let's
Yeah,
move
yeah.
on.
Now, with a player coming in at number 13 on the FoosTalk Live Top 25 Male Singles Foosball Players. Todd Lafredo.
Number 13, Lafredo, probably the greatest doubles player in the history of American foosball. I mean, he has won more than, I think, 25, close to 25 Tornado World Championships, of course, one in 1977 with Gil Jackson. But he was also a really good singles player. He did win on TS. He won the 1978 LA Open in open singles. I was there. I was at that event. Had 3 other finals appearances on the TS Tour. So when we're talking about a guy who was not viewed as one of the great, necessarily even players, as Mark has suggested, in the 1970s, it was in 4 open singles finals. Of course, tournament soccer crashes in 1981, and then in 1982, he won open singles at the U.S. Open, the tournament that I had my greatest moment when I finished 3rd in open doubles with Clint Coyne, who I saw in Colorado recently. But Lafredo won singles and mixed doubles that weekend in Los Angeles in 1982. He was also 2nd at the Worlds that year in 82, and then won the 1984 Dynamo World Championship in open singles, and then won his only Tornado World Championship 2 years later in 1986. That's the last singles world championship, 2 of them. He gets 2 of them. But despite only winning 2 world titles, he was one of the best singles players of the second golden era. He won 2 of the 5 majors in 1991. He won 3 of the 5 major championship singles titles in 1992, including the first 3 of the year, the kickoff, the U.S. Open, and the Masters. Won a number of singles titles in the later 1990s. Between 1991 and 1996, he won 10 major singles championships. I think, in my opinion, maybe we have him a little low. Possibly because he won so many open doubles world titles and only the 2 open singles world championships. Our voters had very different opinions. One of our voters had him as high as number 6 on the list. 2 others had him at number 16 on the list. He was number 2, of course, on our list of the top 50 greatest players of all time on the American Tour. Comes in at number 13 here. Todd Lafredo.
Yeah, I know who had him at number 6, and I'm pretty sure it was me. And I'll tell you why. I said it last week on the. Was it you? I had a. Well, I feel badly because I said last week on the show that something about Todd was that I think it happened in '77. His brain switches a wire and says, "I'm going to focus on doubles at the Worlds. I want to play singles. I want to play well. But it was Todd was always this doubles freak at the Worlds. However, every other tournament leading up to the Worlds, I mean, in my memory in the 90s is what Jim just said. He would win singles all the time. And in the 90s, to get 10 singles championships is a massive thing. I don't know how many Terry has. Terry might have more than Todd, maybe. I don't know. Terry was a monster in singles in the 90s. But Todd would just win. He'd triple. He'd win singles, doubles, mix. There was 5 tour events, and he'd win all the time. In my memory, he was a maestro in singles until the Worlds, where you could expect him to probably win doubles and probably take 3rd in mixed and probably finish 5th in singles. But you expected him to win doubles of the Worlds. I think Lafredo gets a lot of emphasis in doubles because that's where his focus was. But if you look at the body of work, I easily argue Lafredo in the top 10 in singles easily. Anyway, Dave, please take over.
That was my parrot. I don't know if you heard that.
No.
Mark is a parrot. We know that.
So my whole thing with Todd is, I mean, you're talking about the greatest American player of all time. And there's not even I don't think a huge debate. I mean, he's won doubles a ridiculous amount of times. And even with as many single titles as he has, you kind of feel like he's underachieved in singles because of how talented how talented of a player he is. And his emphasis, I think he'd even admit, has always been doubles. I mean, he cares more about doubles than he does singles. I mean, I've played him so many times over the years, and I feel like he's I shouldn't say easy. He's easier to beat in singles. You have a better chance of getting through him in singles than you do in doubles. And I think part of it's just because he cares more about doubles than singles. Should he be higher on the list? Yeah, you could definitely make an argument for that. But I think this when I think of the players that are coming up, I think probably I would still put all of the players ahead of him on this list ahead of him, in my opinion, just because he's, he hasn't won as much as his talent would dictate he should.
That's kind of a rough one, though, isn't it? When you start
comparing him
looking
to himself. Yeah.
Well, when you say that he's an underachiever out of, and I bet you Todd would say right now, Todd has beat me in singles. Let me tell you a story about Todd. Todd beat me in singles shooting a cutback pull shot one time in 4 games. He crushes me in 4 games. He's cutting back, and I asked him if he was shooting that on my defense, and he said, "No, I didn't want to get in my stance because I was lazy." And I was hot. I was peaking at this time. I'm like a hot expert. And Todd's beat me because he didn't want to get into a stance. And I'm thinking, you suck, dude. I mean, you suck. You really suck. Like, so he lazily wins 10 singles championships in the 90s. Like, out of I was gonna run into one sooner or later. I was gonna win one. I think it's tough to use that as a metric. And like he could have won twice as many if he wasn't bored, or he would had more energy drinks, or decided not to fast. It's a rough one. Go ahead, Adam. Sorry.
What is your point, Mark?
I don't
get what you're saying.
I don't even know if you guys are here until I open my eyes and oh, there you guys are.
All right. Yeah, no, it's an interesting point that I think everybody's making. Jim, of course, using stats and numbers and whatnot, and I think you're right. Well, I mean, you can't not be wrong about those numbers, and I think that what it brings. Mark, that's so gross. At least you didn't smell it. What it brings into focus for me is world championship bias. When you're winning, and no, world championship bias and era bias, right? I mean, we can talk about his desire, what it is he wants to do, or Mark can make up whatever Mark makes up, and that's also fine. But Mark, you may or may not have had him in the top 10. I'm not entirely sure. I don't recall. But I think the question does remain.
Right now, loser.
Is he a single specialist? Is he where he should be right now? I don't know. I really have to. I have to look at this again and question my own biases, to be honest with you, because yeah, I know that he won in the '90s, but he was winning in the '80s, and I think, frankly, any one of us here can maybe, with the exception of maybe Gummison, question what kind of biases we have about who's winning championships in the '80s. I don't know, and that's not a dig on any one of you. This is just part of this conversation, and I think it's never ever going to be right. But I don't know. I really don't know. I need to think about it. But at the same time, still, Lafredo's on the list and Mark isn't, so it's a really good day.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, even though Mark keeps,
I had him at 11.
Yeah, I know you did.
I had him
Mark,
11.
I know.
Actually, I think you had him at number 10. I think Mark didn't.
But
okay.
but
I had him at 10.
Mark's scratching his back. I'm still scratching my head, and here's why. Todd finishes at number 13. Okay, the 4 players ahead of him all have 2 or fewer world championships. Todd won, I believe, 15 major singles championships, and that number might be a couple higher than that. None of the other players ahead of him, of those 4 ahead of him, won more than 5 or 6.
Wow.
So not only did he win 2 world championships, he also won 15 major championships, not to mention all the state events and everything else that he won, which I think you could equate with some of Furry's wins on tour as well. And then you have a couple others ahead of him that had fewer world championships or an equal amount and had far fewer major championships. And during an era, and say what you will about the early to mid 80s on Dynamo, say what you will about it. You have to take that into consideration, certainly. But then as the Tornado Tour of the late 80s and 90s, mid 90s and beyond, we call that the second golden era. And that's where he had his greatest success in open singles.
Yeah.
Far more majors than anybody else, except for Terry Moore during that time period. Won 2 world championships, which is also a handful of players have done that throughout the history of the sport. So for me, it's a no-brainer. Todd Lafredo was a top 10 all-time singles player. I had him at number 6, as we talked about earlier. And I believe that's the area that he deserves to be in. Obviously not the doubles player. And of course, a lot of it, like Mark said, he comes into world championship events focusing primarily on doubles, and look at the success he's had with so many different partners. It's remarkable.
Yeah.
But he was also, despite what you may think about him, and maybe we forget about him, maybe we compare him to ourselves, or himself rather, as Dave did. But this is a guy that certainly, in my opinion, deserves to be higher than number 13.
Yeah, I just got a text from my dad, and
Here's the player who's right.
Oh,
Yeah, go for it.
well, he's just calling me a hit head. What is a what is a hit head?
That's a 70s term, I think.
It's a 70s thing? Okay. It's a golden era thing. All right, go ahead, Tom. I just wanted to get that out there.
Your dad left the letter S off that word.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's not shout the quiet part.
I want to ask Dave a question. Dave, do you think it's possible, and this happens too, it's another type of bias entirely. Do you think it's because maybe you felt comfortable beating Todd and maybe he was easier for you? Do you think maybe you had a bias toward where he landed on your specific list?
I may have had a bias, but no, I wouldn't say I had an easier time beating him. I just thought, because he's beaten me in singles just tons of times, but I just feel like I had a better chance to beat him in singles because he would make a lot of mistakes and high risk. But I just think his skill level overall, he's a great goalie, great forward, great transition player, very creative. I just think all that adds up to where I feel like he should have won more. And I think it's because he didn't focus on it. So if that's a bias, then I guess I'm biased.
Yeah.
I don't think you could definitely, as Jim say, make the case that he belongs in the top 10, even number 6. I mean, but if you look at some of those other players, I mean, they were single specialists, and they did have, I think most of the ones ahead of them have at least 2 or more world titles. Todd, as far as I know, Todd got a world title on Dynamo in '84 in singles. And then in '86 on Tornado, and that was the year they had both Tornado and Dynamo. So I don't know if because of that, it's a little more watered down as far as there was really a chance to win a world title. But the other thing interesting is he won in '87. He won doubles on both tables.
Yeah. And one other thing, they're incredible. Don't forget also 2015, the year of the movie, your Foosballer, second place finisher in open singles at the Tornado World Championships as well, is in 2015 as well, at the age of 55.
Don't forget that when he gets a documentarian crew following him around, he just decides, you know what? I'm going to get to the finals again at whatever the hell age.
Because he cared.
58 or whatever the hell he is. He's like, I'm just going to practice. I'm going to get my pencil out for the cameras, and I'm going to draw on the table stuff you've never seen. I'm going to use an eraser. And all of a sudden, here he is. Ryan Morris think he's going to stomp Todd. And now Ryan's archived as a third place finisher. That's serious greatness when you're like, I got a TV camera. I'm going to get to the finals of the World Championships. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm hoping this lights a fire on him and he wins a world singles title now because of it.
Wouldn't it be nice?
It would be great.
The man is 62 years old at this stage. Yeah. I'm not sure he's got a singles title in his future, but who knows with that
Nothing
guy, right?
would surprise me with him.
Yeah.
And one of the most memorable scenes in Foosballers is the scene with the cannon and the battlefield where he's posed a specific matter with the cannon. Anyway, I digress. Let's move on.
Here's
dirty
ranked at number 12 on the FoosTalk Live Top 25 Male Singles Foosball Players. Doug Furry.
Doug Furry, one of the great singles players of the 70s, no doubt about it. Second at the 1975 Worlds when he lost to Steve Simon, who was on the list a little earlier, and then won the prestigious Super Singles title in 1977. That was his biggest singles win, by the way. That was a $50,000 event. It was focused only on singles, tremendously competitive, and he came out on top of that. He did win 6 open singles titles on the 1978 TS Tour, won 10 tournament soccer singles titles overall. Finished second even at the Dynamo Worlds in 1983, post tournament soccer crash and post Jim Wiswell and all. And then was second at the 84 US Open on Dynamo for basically calling it a career at the end of that season. Another guy that did not win as many world championships, but was competitive in world championship events. Obviously, one of the great goalies of all time, one of the great doubles players, number 4 on our top 50 all-time list. That should tell you something. And a great singles player, yet finishes at number 12 here on this list. And I think that's more suggestive of who's ahead of him than anything else, because he is viewed as one of those guys, great goalie, great singles player, great foosball player, period, who really did understand the foosball format very well. Again, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1996 out of the state of Minnesota, finished number 4 on our top 50, finishing at number 12 here, the great Doug Furry.
I'm once again going to be brief because I'd rather hear what Dave and Adam have to say. I would just say that at this point, Doug Furry is the foosball equivalent of Bill Russell. He's just kind of like a guy who, in his era, did everything there was to do and was so dominant. And it's tough for a guy like me who has kind of a narrow, myopic vision of the last 30 or so years to go back another 10 to 15 years preceding that and have a good grasp to deliver anything of substance. But I'll just say that he has that whole Bill Russell manifestation that we just, it's like he's got to be on this list. Where does he go? And I think Dave's a better conversation for his opinions on Doug Furry.
Yeah, I would say the thing I would point out is that just the list of tournaments alone doesn't really tell the whole story with Doug. I grew up in Minnesota, and so I got to really watch a lot of the top players from Minnesota play. And Furry was one of those guys that always had another gear. He's literally the greatest pressure player I've ever seen, for sure. I've never seen anybody that could just, raise his game to another level whenever he had to. And I saw him do it over and over again. I saw him play locally. I saw him play regionally and nationally. And since I really looked up to him as a young player, him and Wiswell, I would go and watch all their matches. So I saw him do things that just super impressed. Always was able to raise his game to another level. Always had the clutch shot, the clutch pass. And in singles, if you've ever played him in singles, really, really smooth. Like everything is just effortless. Got a really smooth 5-bar, one of the smoothest pull shots you'll ever see. Arguably one of the top couple goalies of the TS era. So he can do everything from transition, play goalie, play forward. I mean, he won a world title playing front, and he won world titles playing back. That tells you something right there about what kind of a singles player he must have been, and a great transition player. So, I think this is probably when you think of the titles he has, and he didn't play for as long a period of time as some of the other players ahead of him on the list, I don't have a problem with him being there, but you could definitely make the case that he should be in the top 10.
Yeah, Doug Furry, I think, and this is something that's really coming out as we go down this list, go up this list, is that singles is a multi-rod, multi-position specialization. He's winning. We talk about Rob Mares, who was winning at goalie position open championships, right? We're talking about Furry, of course, who won up front and at back in doubles, right? This translates to what you're doing in singles, and it's something that I think that a lot of people, as we're building this history and talking about what it is that foosball is, and will continue to grow into, we think about the components that make it good. And one of them is when you look at a foosball table and you're getting ready to play singles, it's not just your forward position and your goalie position. It's not even just your 3-bar and your 5-bar. It's every single man and every single possession as it relates to what the other person is doing. And that is something that's this multi-level 4D chess, whatever you want to call it, that occurs. And that's why I think that I think we have only 25-ish of these top 25 singles players, male singles players, because of the rarefied air it takes to be able to operate at foosball at that level. Doug Furry, one of those players at number 12.
Yeah, no question about it. A lot of what not all of us saw Doug Furry play. I saw him play a couple of times, but it's the legacy that he left behind, right? It's the way we look at him. He was almost a superhero. Wiz Fur, Doug Furry, coming from the 1970s. The numbers are there as well, winning 10 singles championships in the 1970s on the TS Tour. That's right up there among the very best, no question about it. Again, the career wasn't real long, but I think we give kind of a special dispensation to players from the 70s who competed from 74 through 81, 6, 7, 8 years, maybe a length of career many times. But because of the level of play, because of the prize money, as Dave talked about earlier, because of the numbers of players in attendance to those events, I think we give them a little bit of a special consideration. So again, he was number 4 on the big list, and number 12 here. Maybe that says a little bit about what we think about his doubles side of the game, but certainly a guy I think who we could argue, as Dave said, should be in the top 10 even without a world singles championship, although a super singles championship I think is right there with that in terms of prestige. But again, that's what makes this list so fun and so enjoyable, is that we can talk about it, we can argue about it, it develops conversation, it gives us all something to talk about, something to continue to focus in on the history of the sport. So no problem with Mr. Furry at 12.
Next, the player ranked at number 11 on the FoosTalk Live Top 25 Male Singles Foosball Players on the U.S. Tour, Tom Speer.
Yeah, the great Tom Speer, another legendary player, another guy that we view through a certain lens that isn't entirely based on statistics. A true singles specialist and another one of the great one-on-one players of the 1970s and then beyond, all through the various decades. 5 top 3 finishes in open singles on the 1979 TS Tour, including 3 open singles wins, and he was voted the player of the year for that tour season in 1979. He then became the first Dynamo World Singles Champion in 1982. And then, of course, 12 years later, in one of the great performances ever, Rocky Mountain High, when he won open singles, defeating Terry Moore in the final in 1994. A guy who really controlled the pace of the game, a singles specialist, so smart, would outthink you. But also, a lot of it was just pace. You had to play at his pace. You had no choice. But a guy, again, won 2 world championships, same as Lafredo. How many singles titles did he have total in his career? Fewer than 5. Yet I'm not saying he shouldn't be maybe even ahead of Lafredo, but it's not because of the stats. It's not because of the numbers. It's something else. It's an intangible with this guy. When we look at him, look at the way he played the singles game, it's something that elevates him. Do I think Lafredo should be ahead of him? Maybe. But certainly Tom Speer, and not because of statistics, does have the 2 world titles, but more because of his influence on other players and on the game, the way he went about his business, comes in at number 11 after being number 6 on our list of top 50 greatest American foosball players. Number 11 here in singles.
Mark, before you go,
yeah,
I want to defer my time to you, Mark. Go ahead.
Oh, great. Thank you. And I want to get to Dave as quick as possible, so this is going to be good. But so when I started playing, there was 3 heroes, right? And there were 3 different classes of players. There was Lafredo, there was Murray, and there was Speer. And you could call me and my group of friends, Murray was on the poster, and Lafredo was a myth, but Speer was a legend. And they were totally different. And for all we knew, because we're a bunch of kids, high school kids, we didn't know if these guys loved each other or hated each other. We had no idea. We didn't really know, but in our minds, they represented 3 categories of persona. And Lafredo was the super talent, and Speer was like on fire. It was a ball of fire. And Tom represented that stoic, could not stress. In our minds, Tom was a robot. He was an android, like unflappable. And we wanted to be these guys, and we wanted to emulate these guys. We wanted to take pieces of them. And so what I believe about Kaiser and what I believe about Doug Furry, I got to see up close watching Speer play. And Spear had this thing where he was not going to, in the very early 90s, late 80s, he had this thing where he was not going to respond, react to anything you did. He was so well practiced and so mechanical about what he did. Like, it was just brilliant to watch the mastery of him play at that level when he was still pretty much in his prime. And it was so rewarding to see him win against Terry Moore when you expected Tom Spear to lose that match. So there is something to be said about that. It's a whole different type of bias that I'm admitting to. His contribution to the game, but it's also the style and the effectiveness of it and the simplicity of it, like the purest form of foosball, the purest form of mechanics. This whole idea of only having, he had really two passes, and it was an up and a down that went from the same spot. And you had people doing all kinds of, almost the opposite of Tony Spredeman's 5-bar. Almost the opposite. Like Tony Spredeman's 5-bar is some fifth dimension thing that has 100 different types of ways to kill you with 5-bar shots, and 30 different ways to go bounce off the wall, all these different things. And you get the opposite of that, which is Tom Spear, who's won world championships passing in 2 locations from the same spot and like befuddling people. Like Terry Moore will tell you right now the best 5-bar he's ever played against is Tom Spear, and most people from the 90s will tell you it's Terry Moore. And that's how great Tom Spear was. And I'll just say one last thing about Tom Spear. I love this great documentary. It's called Free Solo. If you haven't seen it, it's a guy named Alex Honnold who climbs El Capitan with no rope or anything. He climbs the whole damn thing, and when they do a brain test on him, they find out that certain stimuli he doesn't react to it. Now, most of us who play competitively at a high level, we have to deal with our demons. We have to deal with our stress. We have to manage it. And that's part of becoming a champion, in my opinion. Being a champion and a master, in my opinion, is your ability to overcome those things. And then you get guys, I think, like Tom Spear and Alex Honnold, who are on a different level, who have something inside their brain chemistry, the way they're wired, or the way they're able to control that. It's just like they're humming along, and their level of execution isn't going to go up or down when the pressure's on. You have to. It's going to happen to you. It's not going to happen to them. So if you have to beat them. They're going to go where they want to go, and they're going to do it how they want to do it, and you have to go that extra mile to beat them. That was the steady presence. That's Tom Spear. That was his greatness, and that's why you expected him every time. He for the same reason Johnny Horton had people following him around when he was yelling his brains out, Tom Spear had people following him around, and he wasn't saying a word the entire time. And Tom Spear is one of my favorites. And that's my whole thing on Tom Spear. Please, Dave, take over for me.
Wow, that was a lot. But I have to agree with what you said. I would say, I'm going to keep it a little shorter, but I would say, in my opinion, probably the smartest, most disciplined, controlled, methodical player that I have ever seen in all the years I've played. And I don't even know if it's close. I mean, all those things I just mentioned, just technician on the table. As far as the 5-bar, in my opinion, one of the probably 2 best 5-bars of all time. Tony's flashy 5-bar, which is also just as effective. But Spear had a nuance to his 5-bar. And you might say he only did 2 passes, but that's not really accurate. He did a completely different series in the 70s than he did over on TS. I've seen him pass on the front, on the far side, on the near side. He can do every pass. And really what he does is he controls the tempo of how he's moving the ball around and then just waits for you to make a mistake. And he's so smart and controlled. I mean, sometimes you just feel helpless trying to block his 5-bar. It's just that good. So yeah, I've got tons of respect for him as a player, and he's always been one of my favorite players just because he is so smart and so good. And I'm sure there's more I could say, but I'll keep it short.
And I'll just finish up. Obviously, I just want to say this again. This is our family. Foosball is our family. There's 1,500 of us. I think active, maybe 2,000 active, right? And we meet each other, spend money to go to these things and talk to each other, hang out. Please, I implore you, when you go to these tournaments, ask how somebody's doing. Check in with them. Just be there for them. And ask how things are. And non-judgmentally, because if we consider ourselves a foosball family, if we consider ourselves this weird random thing that we do, which nobody else does. It's really weird that we do this, but we love it. We love each other. We love the sport. We got to look out for each other. So just reach out every now and then and say, hey, how's it going? Tom Spear.
Yeah, that's good stuff. From a commentator's point of view, Tom was different, right? When I first came on the scene in '93, he was around here and there, and then '94, of course, where he really, exploded and won that. But he was different, and like Mark said, he was such a magnetic player, despite the fact he wasn't Johnny Horton. He was the anti-Johnny Horton, if anything. But you still couldn't take your eyes off of him, both on and off the table. So compelling, so magnetic. And from a commentator's point of view, one of my biggest thrills in the history of my career is that 1994 singles event when we watched him go through it. We watched him playing, and we're thinking, there's no way this guy, after everything, can win this. And then he beats the man at the time. Terry Moore was the man, right? He was, Lafredo was great. Everybody else was great, but Terry Moore was the best player in the world in 1994. And so for Tom to overcome that and win it, and then have Colorado, all the players from Colorado lift him up on their shoulders, and just an amazing moment. ESPN was there. I mean, it was a perfect storm for Tom Spear. And of course, as Adam, you said it so beautifully, not that we could always go back and say, if we had have said hello to Tom or asked him how he was doing, things would have been different. Our hearts are always going out to Mr. Spear, who continues to live on the streets of Denver. And I just know each and every time I would see him, he would have warm words for me. He would have some sort of special bit of advice. He was very cogent with me, very down to earth. He really had nothing but wonderful things to say about me coming in first 2 or 3 years of my career. And I cared about what these top players thought of what I was doing. I really cared, right? And it took Lafredo about 10 years before he said a nice word to me. But Tom Spear, very early on, was very kind and very supportive, and told me how much he enjoyed what I was doing. And I have nothing but warm feelings for this man. And he is now where he wants to be and continues to be okay. But an amazing individual, an amazing singles player. And despite not a lot of numbers, there's no question that he is on the fringes of being a top 10 all-time singles player, and very well maybe should be on that top 10 list. The great Tom Spear.
Hey, Jim.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
One other thing I'd like to say about Tom too is that really impresses me about him is there's very few players that are successful over multiple eras. And Spears, one of the few that he was dominant in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And then when he won his last world singles title in 94, he never played singles again after that.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
That's
right. He might have won more after that, but he stopped playing. He decided he was going to quit playing singles.
He might be like, besides Todd, is he the only person on this list that has a major singles title in the 70s, 80s, and 90s? I think he's the only one on the list with the 70s, 80s, and 90s major single title, right?
There's another one that will be coming up in the 10, at least one more.
Okay. Yeah, that's funny that you bring that up, Dave. It's almost, I remember now it's all coming back. Him saying he's retiring as the champ.
Yeah,
and then that's it. And who knows? I mean,
yeah.
Who knows what he could have done after? Yeah, it leaves a lot of question open to that. Interesting.
Well, guys, we certainly landed on some big names here tonight. When you're talking about names like Spear and Furry and Lafredo and Simon and Mares, you're talking about truly some of the greats of the game, no question about it. And in the singles format, which is a completely different thing, you know that, Dave. There's forward, there's goalie, and there's singles, which is a different thing. I think we're starting to see these pure singles players. Yeah, they were great in doubles, great forwards, great goalies, but an understanding of what singles foosball really is as we get into this top 15 and now into the top 10 moving forward.
I just think singles for me is so demanding and so taxing. And
that's because you suck.
Well, you know what? Eat a bag of you know what. There's some truth to that. I mean, I gave up foosball 3 years after I started playing, so you know where you can go with that, Adam. But the point being is this. Look, you see it all the time, right? It is so demanding and so exhausting and so taxing, especially at the highest levels, that I'm surprised. I'm surprised more people don't quit. Quit playing singles. More people don't quit playing, and you do see a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people play singles because it's part of their package, or was part of their package. You get a package deal, singles in there, but you would be stunned how many people just forfeit it out. And it's because of all the drain it takes on you mentally and physically. And unless you're like totally loaded on caffeine or other types of stuff, usually people are just like forsake singles and just focus on doubles. That's the reality of it. I mean, go ahead, Adam.
But to that point, though, so, I mean, somebody that we could be talking about that just kind of stopped, that was on this list lower, was Lewis Cartwright, right? There was a ceiling for him that he could have kept going, but he was just like, he moved into goalie land in doubles.
Well, the way Lewis will describe that is this. Lewis will say that he stopped practicing, which is another way of saying, I don't have the endurance or mental, because look, when you play singles at the highest levels, these guys have a book of skills and a book of experience to get past the first few rounds. And then it's like, did you do your homework on Lafredo? Did you do your homework on T-Mac? Or what is Tony working on? And you got to get to these, like, whatever it is, the fifth to fourth and fourth to third rounds of singles based on your historical knowledge of the person you're playing and your recent homework. And all that is, like, very, very difficult to do. Or you're just going to, like, leave. Go ahead, Jim. I don't know if I'm.
No, I was waiting for you. I mean, you're on fire tonight, Mark. No doubt about it.
No,
but that's what makes some of these like doubles and near triples of the 1990s so incredible, is because these top players, Terry Moore, Todd Lafredo, these other players who were playing everything, right, were going deep in everything, sometimes tripling, and that meant playing 10 plus matches in each event sometimes, maybe not mixed so much, but certainly singles and doubles, where it is how do you stay focused? How do you stay physically prepared to play that many matches during the course of a weekend? And you were talking about players who sort of stopped playing singles. Well, we got one with us here tonight in Dave Gummonson, who really focused on doubles, and it resulted in the 3 world championships with Tracy McMillan and national championships, multiple national championships, etc., because Dave chose to focus on playing forward, play doubles with Tracy McMillan. And so it's happened a few times, and it's understandable, like you say, Mark, why that would occur.
A good analogy, though, is a good analogy just to harken back is Lewis Cartwright. He is so great. He's so great that he, without practice, and I don't know, what year is it that he loses to Tony? Was that 01? What year does he get beat by Tony in singles?
03. Yeah, lost in the finals of 03. Yep.
So this is a fact. Lewis goes to a couple of weekly draws 3 weeks before the World Championships, plays almost 0 singles. So he's practicing for doubles, and he plays 03 in singles, and he smashes everybody. And he wins the winner's bracket. But there's no way in hell. I think Tony 6 straights him. I think Tony beats him in like 20 minutes and 6 straight. There's no way in hell he's going to beat Tony. And so you see me talking about this duplicity. So great that he could still beat all these players and get to the clutch and make the match ball and manage the stress and then get to someone like Tony, and Tony obliterates him. And that's the difference between a Lewis Cartwright that's practiced all year long, has been taking notes, has played Tony multiple times and is ready to face Tony, and the difference between a great, incredible champion without practice, doing what he needs to do to get to a final, and then running into a wall he has no chance of climbing.
Yeah, and that was during Cartwright's doubles period as well, when he wasn't playing a lot of singles. That was the only during that time period as well, during the early 2000s. But he was able to do it. Again, a testament to his ability, his early training, et cetera, because he didn't practice for it. No, he just kind of got there and then got steamrolled by the hottest young player maybe that we'd ever seen. So,
well, I have to say, guys, that 15 through 11 was fantastic. There was some amazing moments here. And I have to say, that's just speaking from a fan. Number 13 and number 11 surprised me. I really thought those guys were going to be higher on the list. I was very surprised to see Lafredo at 13. Very surprised to see Tom Spear outside the top 10. Very surprised. So how you guys did that, I have no idea.
Yeah, it's again a testament to just how tough the list was to put together. No doubt about it.
I want to say that when I said Lewis was climbing over a wall, Adam laughed, and because he's fat shaming Lewis right now. Adam is fat shaming Lewis right. Look at him smiling.
Oh, you said wall? I thought you said wall of cheese. I was like, there's no way he couldn't get over that.
I told you. Adam, you're a horrible human being.
Oh, are you kidding me? You know the name of my autobiography is Fistful of Cheese, the Adam Gilson story? Don't even start with me. Yeah,
Yeah.
Jim's heard that.
A fistful of cheese.
Yeah.
That is gross.
It's
young
good.
man.
It's really well written. I think it was a ghostwriter, but and the plot really had a lot of holes in it. But
Yeah, well, are we making Swiss cheese jokes, Jim?
Where's that cheese come from? From where? Where's
Wait,
the fist
no,
to get that?
no,
cheese?
curds and whey.
Yeah,
It's curds and whey.
Jim's
always.
making cheese puns, and I camembert it.
Camembert. Oh my god, that's so bad.
Oh, on that note, Tom, a lot of fun, though, guys.
I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's bad. It's not even making any sense.
Any way you slice it, that was bad.
You sharp, are you?
So
Oh.
again, you know,
Wait,
Here,
Dave was saying what? Dave?
Dave's the
guys
king of
aren't
the
too
punsters.
Not too sharp.
Oh, there we go.
I'm extra sharp. Who do you mean?
Oh my goodness.
Dave, get the show back on the track here. What's going on? Wait.
Wait, what is going on? Let's tell everybody though, because the next two Sundays we're not going to be doing this. We're taking a pause because of holidays.
Yes. So Christmas and New Year's happen to fall on Sundays. So we are not going to be live next Sunday or the Sunday after. And yes, we're going to be counting down the rest of this list. That would be 10 to 1 over 2 weeks in 2023. So January 8th is the first time we're back to do this live. And in the meantime, we do have, at least a Christmas special we're working on right now. And with some cooperation, Jim, we hopefully will have a very interesting episode for you next week that is all Christmas-based. Foosball Christmas-based, I should say.
We should break the top 10 up into 10 separate episodes and drag this thing on into the summer.
No, we got to do the top 15 lady singles players as well. I think coming up here shortly. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah,
sure.
That's going to be awesome.
So, Dave, I'm going to start with you. When it comes to the holidays, what do you got planned? Are you traveling, or is it family? What's going on?
Just time with family. I work in retail, so can't really go anywhere.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's it. This is like tax season for an accountant for you.
Yeah, or worse.
Or worse. Well, we appreciate you taking the time out because, of course, you must have. At this point, you're just ready to just cash it in. Pardon the pun. But so Dave, what else would you like to share with us tonight when it comes to 2023? Anything you want to look forward to when it comes to foosball?
I'm actually planning on going to the Vegas tournament just for the fun.
Yeah,
Nice.
I love that, dude.
Nice.
So I'm planning on being there. Doubt I'll be practiced.
I know you're gonna be there to have fun. Are you gonna play an event? Are you gonna have fun and get shit faced with me and start fires? What's your plan, Dave?
I haven't decided yet.
All right, I'm excited. I'm coming to see you, Dave.
Well, Dave, because Mark has beat Todd Lafredo once, so that's probably a good partner for you.
Yeah, I beat him one time.
I believe he beat Steve Simon once as well.
Never beat Steve Simon.
No,
but that was at the buffet.
Steve doesn't generally play. But, we're down to our top 10. And, as much as I think Todd Lafredo should have been higher, sitting at number 13, I really feel like, in my opinion, he was number 6. When you look at the top 10 that's coming up, I'm not sure who you kick out of there. That's how good this top 10 list is as we counted down to the final top 10 greatest singles players in the history of the American Tour here after a 2-week hiatus for Christmas and New Year, which both fall on Sunday this year. So, but it's going to be fun counting them down. Mark, I think your idea of stretching it out to over 10 weeks is a really poor one. I just wanted to get that on the record. But I do look forward to the 5 and the 5 of the next couple of shows.
And Jim, while we're at it, what are you looking forward to most in 2023, and what's for the holidays?
I too am in retail to some degree, so I will not be leaving town. We're going to spend time here in beautiful 32 degree and below Durango. We have not seen above freezing in almost a week now.
Wow.
The mornings are single digit or below a little bit. But that's what you get. It's still sunny. It's amazing, having grown up in California, in Southern California, some of our days here are sunny and 23 degrees, which is a little strange. The sun is out all day long, and it's 23 degrees. So not a cloud in the sky. But when you're up at almost 7,000 feet, that's just how it is. And so we're going to spend time here with the kids and the family. here in Durango for Christmas, and then of course New Year's as well. So,
And Mark, I gotta ask you, of course, what's up for the holidays, and what do you look forward to in 2023?
I know you're forced to ask me, Tom. Anyway, no, keep staying home, man. In my little suburb south of Chicago, we're hanging out and doing. I got twin 9-year-old girls. It's very, very Christmassy around here. Today, I was the guest conductor, so there was a bid, and whoever won the bid got to be the conductor for the choir. And it was a big event, hundreds of people, and I got in front of a bunch of people and waved my hands around and did a thing, and so that was awesome, lovely. Christmas is a very special thing with 9-year-olds. So just camped out, not doing much. 2023, looking forward to going through the rest of this list with you guys. It's been really fun to be back on the show doing stuff with you. So that's what I'm looking forward to for 2023 right now. This stuff.
That is the correct answer.
Thank you.
Adam, what about you? Holidays?
Yeah,
2023.
Mark, we flipped the coin, and well, so you're back. But the cool thing is that you have you're blurring your white background, and I think that's still really awesome that you did that.
Hey, why don't you take that bun clip on and hand it to me so I could wear it sometimes too?
Good one. So for the holidays, I'm going to be reflecting on this. And this is something that I think we're going to be talking about a lot more next year. I'm going to be thinking about the tectonic shift that's been happening in foosball since the pandemic started. And I'm thinking about all the different things that have been occurring and all the different new formats and all the different ways that people are just examining the time that they spend with their foosball family and how that might come to a head in different ways in 2023. Yes, I'm going to have dinner with my in-laws, and I'm going to just have great meals and have some good time. But the vast majority of the time, I'm going to be thinking about what foosball is going to be with the 1,500 of us across the country in the United States. Mazel tov.
Wow.
I do want to tease one thing on that note. I want to tease one thing, and it's I did a bunch of work. I've had a journey with foosball over the past 2 years that came to a head with a lot of stuff I was doing that very few people had a ton of visibility to. Jim had some snippets of visibility because of our working relationship. I think Adam had snippets of visibility. But my process at a professional level, when I integrate what I do professionally with foosball, is not to talk a ton about it because that's not my thing. There's no reason to talk a ton about it. And it's come to a spot now where describing some of that stuff may be relevant for other activity around foosball. I will just say that the work I was doing is at a high level with people with a lot of money that were taking a very serious look at foosball. And now maybe coming into next year, 2023, may be an appropriate time to disclose what that work was. I don't want to portend that there's a magnificent, amazing things to happen about foosball, because when it comes down to it, I'm really not. It's not my thing. I don't want to create any hype. That's not what this is about. Anyway, there was some work I did, and it may be appropriate next year to talk about it on this show.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Mark, for all the work you've done over the last couple of years and continue to do. For me, and Tom, you didn't ask me, but maybe you did, and I didn't complete my thoughts. But looking ahead to 2023, for me, it's about infrastructure, and we've talked about it here on the show. You may remember our discussion with Donald Wilson of the USGSO. There needs to be structure. Mark is so capable. He can go out and he can get his foot in a boardroom. He can contact people of importance and potential backing of our sport. But beyond that, before we can really move forward on a lot of projects, we need to have infrastructure, club system, just some sort of format, some sort of system where we can all work together. Promoters can work together. The players can work together. Executives can be a part of this from various companies. But we've talked about it here. Infrastructure has to come before almost anything. And in some ways, we may have to break some things down before we can build them back up. So for me, looking ahead at 2023, I hope finally we can, at the very least, implement the club system to begin to give us some infrastructure. Adam?
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is all part of another conversation, right, Jim? I mean, This is a whole nother series, a whole other show. But when we talk about this, it's the elephant in the room. It's the elephant in the room because, and we covered this. I covered this with you, and I was very fortunate to do so last year when I went to, what was my first tournament with Inside? The Nationals, right? There was a boatload of people there. There continued to be a boatload of people every time we went to these tournaments. And then I think that we can agree that it started slacking off because the enthusiasm gap started waning, which is fine. How do we buttress that? How do we make that better? Well, that's a conversation to be had.
Yeah, and we need to have that conversation right here, hopefully with a round table of people that that have impact and have opinions about where we can go.
And I echo your hopes for 2023 that foosball grows even further and we see some remarkable changes.
And
hope.
And before we sign off here, Tom, what are you doing?
Oh,
holiday wise.
Yeah.
You know what? This is really unusual from my job, but I'll be out of the studio for 13 days.
Whoa!
13
No
days.
way! Wow!
Yeah.
Congratulations!
What are you gonna do?
Awesome.
So I'm going to tear down the studio.
You're that pissed?
Cool.
It's I have a few things that are coming in to embellish the studio, but I have to empty out the room and start over again. But 13 days is maybe enough time. We'll see.
Hey guys, by the way, I've neglected to say anything about it so far tonight, but I'm going to go ahead and do so whether I'm allowed to or not. But the 2023 Hall of Fame balloting has been completed and the winners have been announced, at least to the Hall of Fame committee. I don't know if it's been released publicly, but and many of you know how strongly I have kind of lobbied for one player to get in. And he did. Scotty Weidman.
Oh, good.
Is going to be in the Hall of Fame along with a woman from the late 80s on the Tornado Tour named Gina Smith, who won, I think, a world championship or two. One of those, I think, was with Steve Murray. I'll have to look her up. But Scotty Weidman, finally.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Very cool.
Hey, if I'm not supposed to announce it, Hall of Fame committee, I apologize.
No, you're okay, Jim. You're
doing
okay.
it anyway. All
Yeah,
right?
As they say in The Princess Bride, he's the Brute Squad. No, never mind. That was way better in my head.
that's
Go ahead.
failed.
Good. Sorry.
After you. So, anything else that you guys want to add? Dave, you want to pile on this this list?
No, I got to go to bed.
I just moved you down on my list, Dave. Dave, I look forward to seeing you at the Hall of Fame Classic when we will be inducting Scotty Weidman and Gina Smith. Look forward to seeing you there playing and hanging out and hanging out with Mark, apparently, and having a heck of a good time. At least that's one of your options,
Dave's
apparently.
hot and cold on me. Dave's hot and cold on me. He'll take a drink from me. He doesn't care. I love
He's
you,
wary
Dave.
of you. And we miss your puns, buddy. We do miss your puns. I look forward to all 80 of them that I'll experience when I'm in Vegas, 26 of which will be really good. And so look forward to that as well. Hey, guys, I want all of you, everybody out there watching and everybody here, of course, to have a great holiday season. Spend time with your family. Spend time with your foosball family next year. I thought what Adam said earlier was beautiful because, you know, when you look at the average age of the American foosball player, let's make sure we value every second we have with our friends out on the tour.
Great sentiment. And with that, Dave, Jim, Mark, Adam, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
All right.
Merry
Thank
Christmas.
and thank you everybody on Twitch for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you so much for checking it out tonight.
You rock.
With enthusiasm, Adam. With enthusiasm.
Adam's cell phone number is. Please send any complaints, bad only, to Adam Gilson.
I've never been doxxed before. What a time for me. Thank you, Mark, for somebody who blurs their white background.
Wow. I'll see y'all in 2023. Later, guys. FoosTalk Live. Thank you so much for tuning in, and Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year and Happy Holidays from all of us right here.
Foosball tournaments are everywhere. FoosTalk Live proudly presents a weekly update of events near you with the FoosTalk Live Tournament Beat. Here's what's up. We start the new year off right with the 716 Foosball Club. They proudly present the 6th annual Foosball Tournament, January 7th, 2023 at Bison Billiards Transit Road in Williamsville, New York.
The Thunderdome No Pro Tampa, January 6th through January 8th, Holiday in Clearwater, Florida. Then it's the 2023 Kentucky State Tour kickoff, February 1st through the 5th, Clarion Hotel in Lexington, Kentucky. It's the Moneyball Northwest Foosball Tournament, February 16th through the 19th at the Hyatt Regency, Portland, Oregon. It's the $5,000 DFW Championships of Foosball, February 17th through 19th. Carrollton Chop Shop Sports Garage, Carrollton, Texas. The Wisconsin State Championship is March 16th through the 19th at Mad Apple Billiards, Appleton, Wisconsin. The 2023 Hall of Fame Classic, taking place April 12th through the 16th at the Golden Nugget in Las Vegas, Nevada. The Tornado Championships, August 30th through the 4th, 2023 at the Clarion Hotel, Lexington, Kentucky. Each week, we do our best to give you the most up-to-date listing of foosball tournaments near you. If you have an event you'd like to add, send us all the details to info@foosballradio.com. Tune in every week for the FoosTalk Live Tournament Beat. FoosTalk Live is a product of Foosball Radio. With gratitude, we recognize our Foosball Radio Patreons, our FoosTalk Live sponsor, original-leonhardt-usa.com. And thanks to InsideFoos.com for use of their audio during the show. Tune in again next week for another episode of FoosTalk Live. In the meantime,
We'll see you, Foozin'.